Hi, everybody. It's Josh with Talk About Trek, and we are back again today to do what we do best here on this channel talk about Star Trek TNG books. We are now at number 53. We have finished off Diane Carey's Red Sector, which is book 3 of 6 in the Double Helix saga, and this saga just keeps on surprising, and, you know, each one is improved upon the last, in my opinion. I am a big Diane Carey fan. However, though, I've read, I don't know, a ton of her books. She does a fantastic job, I guess, just with the Romulan culture, with, I don't know, just she's a fantastic writer overall. And this book really is something special. I think that the focus being, well, before we get too much into it, let's do the normal reading from the cover here. So as you can see, this is a Spock and McCoy centered book. Spock and McCoy reunite to save a new generation. But that really is not the case. They are characters in the book, but this is an Eric Stiles book, which, like I said, for me was a complete surprise. So who is Eric Stiles? I'll tell you in a moment. Anyway, from the back of the book here, let's read this. Like the biological weapons they employ, a sinister conspiracy has spread across the Delta Quadrant and across many years of Starfleet history. Now the mysterious menace surfaces again to strike at the heart of the Romulan Empire. Star Trek The Next Generation, Book 3 of 6, Double Helix Red Sector. An artificial virus has infected the entire Romulan ruling family. Ambassador Spock must put aside his efforts at unification to summon his old friend, Dr. Leonard McCoy, who discovers that the only hope for a cure lies with a long-lost Romulan heir whose blood and tissues have not been contaminated by the virus. But can the heir be found before the collapse of the ruling dynasty throws the entire empire into chaos? Can they? That's awesome. This back blurb here gives you no notion of what is to come in this book. And if you came into this book and you saw the cover and you saw the title and you read the back, you would be expecting it to be centered upon them somehow, including the crew of the USS Enterprise NCC 1701D, right? Let me get a little closer here. Anyway, that's the image you get, right? But not at all the case. So anyway, this was published in 1999, and it came in at, let me see, 293 pages, and I started this one on the 6th of May and just finished it up this morning. So it took me a little bit longer than the previous two, but I think that was just because of things I had to do. The book itself, like I said, is definitely my favorite out of the three, and honestly has probably worked its way up into maybe a top 10 Trek book for me of all time, which is a list that would be hard for me to make, to be honest with you. But if you were to ask me, like, what are some of my favorites, this is definitely one of them. And what I liked about it was the surprise factor, right? So, again, if you want to get into this book and you want to check it out, well, you probably shouldn't be listening to me then, because then you're going to get all the spoilers, right? But anyway, I'll just give you the gist of it. There is a character that they introduced, this Ensign Stiles. And if you remember the episode, I think the Balance of Terror, right? Where Ensign Stiles is, maybe not Ensign, maybe it's Lieutenant at that point. He's like the helmsman on the Enterprise, Kirk's Enterprise. And he hates Romulans. He hates them with a passion. He lost his grandfather and his father in the Romulation, the Romulation Wars, the Federation Romulan Wars, right? So he is very bigoted against Romulans, right? And Kirk even calls him out. There's no place for bigotry on the bridge, or however that's said. So Now this is his son, grandson. I forget exactly where we were at there. Hold on. We have to turn off the distracting flying double helix. Boom. There we go. Sorry. Now. So anyway, yeah, again, you're introduced to a new character that takes center stage in the book, right? And then everything revolves around this character. And you get to see his growth from basically a young ensign and, kind of what he goes through there, through a series of, gosh, I want to say up to maybe 14 to 20 years, something like that. The book kind of spans over, right? So you do get to see his growth, which is awesome. That's like one of the greatest parts of this book is to see kind of how he ends up as a character, right? It just is fantastic. So, but again, and the other awesome part about this book is that it does not focus on a starship as well. Later on in the book, the main character comes in with a CST, which is a combat support tender. So think basically a mobile starbase whose design is to enact mid-battle repairs on other ships, right? Such a cool idea that I kind of love to see brought to Star Trek, right? And it's something I can't ever remember seeing before or hearing about before. So now we do have some interesting notes here from the lovely Voyages of the Imagination, the book about Star Trek books. And we'll go ahead and just read this right to you here, because I feel the same way. The author, Diane, says, Red Sector is one of my favorite books. Another chance to explore the Star Trek universe from a new point of view, and a chance to see Spock at his best, with humor, compassion, and humility. I've always held that Vulcans, as portrayed so well by Nimoy, had all kinds of emotions, but simply controlled them. The interest of the characters is that they control what they feel, and are always strained to hold reactions in. That's what made them interesting and dramatic. In this book, Spock combines forces with a young man with a serious case of hero worship for him. I like Styles and his character growth. It's why Greg and I write. So again, that's exactly how I felt reading it as well. And it's interesting that those points were brought up there. So another reason this novel is one of her favorites is it also gave me the chance to showcase one of the workhorses of the military fleet, a tender vessel called Combat Support Tender, a movable starbase that is derived of real floating shipyards in the U.S. Navy. I've always looked for ways to show that the queens of sea-going vessels, the carriers and high-profile vessels, are supported by dozens of kinds of other ships. Diane Carey is a sailor. She's served aboard, actually she wrote this while serving aboard the schooner True North. So I liked how basically, I'll paraphrase the rest, she kind of convinced Paramount to show other kinds of ships, right? You can't have a fleet without these support ships as well. So the introduction of the support ship in this book I think was awesome. It was huge, and just a big surprise, because the other books, they all kind of went in their own different directions as well, but this one really went off with its own whole new original character, and then taking this whole new concept of Star Trek of having the support, ship out there as well. So, and final note here, all of the crewmates of the character were actually named after her crewmates from the True North, where she had served while she was writing the book. So very cool, and it kind of adds like a little bit of a interesting backstory to the book that I think. So spoiler time. Let's just talk about the book. We're going to get into it big time. We had a lot of fun reading this, I'm telling you. Again, I love surprises. Well, I love surprises in books. I don't know if I love like every surprise, but this was a very excellent surprise. So the book starts out with basically the main character is this Eric Styles, like I said, and he is just an ensign at this point, and he has been assigned an evacuation mission. He's got to get down to this planet and get a VIP basically off. The situation on the planet has gone bad. They are pretty much anti everyone who is not one of them, and they are called think it's the Pajan is how I was saying it in my head. But anyway, they don't want anyone else there, so it's time for everybody kind of take off. So they are getting down there to do the evacuation. Who are they evacuating? Turns out to be none other than Spock. And Ensign Styles, he does have a serious case of hero worship towards Mr. Spock. So he's very nervous about the mission, and his team kind of ribs him. And I love the back and forth that happens between his crewmates and himself. So, and I wonder if that was also a kind of a look back at maybe how she and her crewmates interacted as well, right? So, very cool. But anyway, they are able to get to Mr. Spock, but things kind of start turning bad, right? There's Molotov cocktails being thrown, riots are starting, so they've got to get him out of there quick, and it's becoming a more dangerous situation. So they load Mr. Spock on, and Ensign Styles kind of gets in the last ship so that he can make sure that everybody gets out, right? He kind of feels, too, that he messed up, you know? He did something wrong in this mission, so now he's got to try to make it right by getting everybody out of there. So he, you know, they're able to take off and get out of there, and he provides enough cover, but he himself and his ship crashes into a mountain, and he is caught. And this part of the book is very cool too. I'm kind of a big sucker for prison break stories. You know, I love the Count of Monte Cristo, John Carter of Mars. For some reason, I was kind of reminded of that a little bit when this was going on too, and I think that has to do with just the being caught in this weird prison with these weird situations. You know. But anyway, he's there in the prison when he first faces what's called the constrictor, which is this basically this phenomenon that is happening on the planet, right? And it is like at any moment, all of a sudden, gravity jumps up to like 10 times, and you're basically like squished down to the ground. Of course, buildings break, things fall, and this has been going on this planet for some time now, and it is really, I mean, it kills like thousands of people every time it happens, you know? So his cell is messed up, his arm is crushed, but he hears a voice coming over. So like the next cell over now has access to his because of the damage, and this guy's talking to him and he wants to come over and help him, right? So then they start talking back and forth, and he eventually comes over. And it's interesting because, like, at first when you meet Styles, you don't really like him, right? He's kind of got this poor attitude, but then you grow to like him. But then here, as soon as he sees this dude as a Romulan, he picks up a bar and threatens to smash him in the face. And then you're like, oh man, how are you going to let this old prejudice come back, right? But again, it's kind of been in his family, right? It's been ingrained into him. And, you know, I mean, obviously things aren't that great with the Romulans anyway, even in that time. So, and I think this time period here we're talking about is, I think TNG Season 3 minus 14 years or so. I didn't note the dates very well. I got a couple things, so it's either like 14 to 19 years, right? But basically what happens is, well, eventually they kind of talk it out, right? And it turns out that this is a Romulan named Zevon, and he was here and he was captured because he was performing experiments like close by this planet. The experiments went awry, and the experiments were the cause of the constrictor. So he's here and feels basically it's his punishment to be there anyway because he caused all this, and you know, vows to somehow solve it someday, right? So this is your introduction to these characters. And then there is a warden character as well. I think his name was, I gotta get his name right too. I wrote down Ozempa, but man, I don't think it's Ozempa. Yeah, I didn't take very good notes here. Well, anyway, we can keep talking while I'm looking for the man's name in here. So they become very close friends over the period of their incarceration, right? Or Sova, O-R-S-O-V-A, or Sova. Anyway, they become very close friends over the period of their incarceration. Bad news for Mr. Styles, because of the kind of the everything that's going on in the sector. It's close to like the Romulans. They have to declare the sector what's called a lights are out sector. No, lights are back sector. A red sector. So hence a red sector, the title of the book there, right? Anyway, so nobody basically can go in or out. Now Styles is going to be stuck there on that planet, and basically they are like tortured. And by the time 4 years passes, he is malnourished, beaten, and kind of ready for death. He's getting ready to die. Him and Zevon have been constantly talking and working out ways, thinking of ideas and things that they could do to beat this constrictor and, kind of help redeem Zevon, in his eyes for what he's done to this planet, right? But at the end of the 4 years, somehow McCoy is able to work his way into Red Sector and get Styles out, right? And so this is where McCoy comes into the story. And again, like, they each come in, Spock and McCoy, as kind of like side characters initially, and even closer to the end too. So, but I like how McCoy at this point is this kind of this doctor who can kind of get in. He can like work his way through the system and get into places where he couldn't get into normally. He's got different hookups and stuff like that. So that was a very cool introduction for Bones. But he gets in there and he gets him out. And again, very little actual Enterprise stuff, right? And this is a TNG book, but you got like no TNG. There is a little TNG though. Dr. Crusher does have a little bit of appearance in it. Basically, the Double Helix storyline, how that comes. See, again, you've gotten like this far into the book, and you're really not even invested into the Plague storyline yet, right? So that's, I guess we can bring that up now. The Plague storyline comes in with this version of the Plague, and again, each of these books has kind of followed along a very, very scary biologically, or someone made this plague, infected a certain group with it, and is kind of performing these experiments, right? But this one is very different from the previous two. It only infects the Romulan royal family. So the whole Romulan royal family is in the process of dying out, and the Enterprise is going to try to help, and they're going to try to figure out a way to do what they can. And that's where Crusher's story comes in, and she is able to actually go to the Romulan Empress, right, and try to treat her and save her. So she has a small part in Styles' story. It's not her story at all. So anyway, Styles is out, and him and Zevon grew very close. As two people who endure a terrible captivity together, they became very close. And he promised that he was going to inform Zevon's family that he was in there. Turns out Zevon is like, 150,000th in line for the Romulan throne, right? So he's royal blood, but he's like way down there somewhere. So Styles thinks that he did what he needed to do and that he got out, right? So then the story skips ahead again, and this is where we get to meet the Saskatoon. The Saskatoon is the name of the combat support tender. And it starts out with a very cool action scene where it's in battle. The Romulans are kind of breaking off little border skirmishes here and there because of what's happening. So you get to see this thing in action come in and like repair this ship's like warp nacelle, right? And I don't know, maybe one of my favorite scenes in the book is just how everything's done, and like how they come in and they use tractors, they use lines, they send people out, and the whole thing just like goes like perfectly to plan. And it's just again, it's something that in a Star Trek story, in a movie or whatever, it's something that we've not really been able to see, So it makes me want to read that Corps of Engineers stuff. I bet there's a lot of cool stuff like that in there too. Man, I wish there was more stories about this guy. I don't think that there is though. So anyway, so that's where we stand basically. This guy has turned down promotion. He still is a lieutenant, but he's doing kind of what he wants to do, which is to run this thing the best that he can, and he has done like a fantastic job with it, right? he's kind of got this reputation now within the Federation, even though he still kind of doesn't feel that way, and kind of maybe is questioning himself a little bit more. So, but now the mission has changed, right? So he, okay, all right, we're getting to the end here, and we're gonna fudge things up. We're gonna kind of just mix it all here at the end, because I don't think I can accurately tell you the story. I'd probably just mess it up, right? So we will summarize as we get to the end here, because that's always fun. So basically how it works out is Styles finds out Zevon was never released, right? He never got out. So he gets that information to the doctors, Dr. Crusher, Dr. McCoy, let's say, and now they have a hope. What they needed was one uninfected member of the royal family, and this guy is it, right? So they are able to. So basically, he flies his Spock, or they fly the combat support tender directly into the red sector, right to that planet. They got to deal with some trouble when they get there. So there is some interesting action scenes there where they're actually getting pulled down into the planet. Spock and Styles have to beam down to the planet. And this is where you see like a lot of growth from Styles too, as he kind of goes from being the, following Spock to more understanding that he's the commander of the mission and giving the orders and taking charge of the mission, right? Telling Spock what to do and where to go. Anyway, they disable the weapon, save his ship. Now they're on the planet, and they go and they find Zevon. But when they find Zevon doesn't want to leave. He wants to stay and continue his work. He's also got a lady there now, this Psychora, who has come in. So he basically at this point kind of considers himself like a native of the planet. And what happened was, over the period of 10 to 14 years, he worked with Orsova, or basically Orsova kind of exploited him to get control of the planet, using this guy's brain and technology to save the planet, start to save the planet from these constrictors, right? That was the idea. So Orsova gets control of the planet that way, but Zevon continues his research trying to save the planet and do what he swore to do, which was to save more people than he killed by initially doing this experiment, right? Styles is like, no. I think he basically stuns him, carries his butt out of there, right? Gets him. They get to the swamp. They get to like their meetup point. Very cool scene here too, where they hide the ship in a lake, and it comes up out of the lake, and that I like that visual in my mind. That was very cool. So, I think that's what they did in that. They did that in that. 2009 Star Trek movie or whatever too, where they hide the Enterprise under the water and it comes up. I like that visual too. So maybe that's where they got that from. Anyway, in the end, this whole thing has always been manipulated by this shady character in the background. This is the guy that's engineering these viruses and testing them out. So he commands Orsova to stab Zevon with the virus. And somehow, this dude gets close enough and he does it and he stabs him. And then, unfortunately, that's their last hope. And as soon as they were like, oh no, he's infected, it's our last hope. Oh, there's a funny scene too where like Dr. McCoy's like, what did he say? Anyway, it's something about he called himself Dracula and he wanted his blood. It was good. So there was a good mix of humor in here too. But anyway, poor guy's infected. Oh no, they're all infected. As soon as they said that, I'm like, his lady is pregnant, isn't she? And McCoy confirmed that. They're able to get the healthy cells from the lady's baby. They make the virus. They save the Romulan people. They save the day. And Styles is going to bring his combat support tender there to the planet and stay until they can build a successful barrier around the thing to protect them from the constrictor. And then Starfleet's like, you know what? Good job, Mr. Styles. We're gonna help you out with that too. So happy endings all around for everybody, except for that Orsova guy, because he got stabbed through the neck by Psychora after he probably stabbed that dude. Anyway, He did not have a happy ending. Everyone else did. I had a very happy ending reading this book because, like, what a surprise. I was going in thinking, you know, man, this is going long, right? Look at all my time my lights are turning out. I went in thinking, TNG book, it's going to feature Spock and old bones, and they're going to be solving some problem. Totally not even that. Different character, new ship, but still following along with that storyline. So, well done. Well done, Diane Carey. That's it. We're going to move on to the next one. I'm really enjoying this series and really liking talking about it. As you can see, we've talked 25 minutes about Red Sector, and I probably could have went another 5, 10, 15, 20. Yeah. We could have went all night with this thing. But we're not going to. Thanks for hanging out and listening. As always, my friends, live long and prosper. We'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good night.